What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Stellar Blade 2. There was a post from Shift Up talking about bringing on a lot of people, a hiring process. So I kind of want to go over that news. It's a fair amount of stuff, and they're gearing up for it. And because of the gear up, they kind of give away. Well, they have to say what it's for, right? Well, actually, some developers don't do that. Some don't say the actual name, but they literally say the next installment of Stellar Blade. So Stellar Blade 2. So very honest of them. I like that. And because of this, they're looking for a lot of different positions. If you go on the actual website, 3D background artists, character artists, background concept artists. I think they're hiring for maybe 10, 12 different types of positions. They say it'll be an open year-round recruitment. No deadline for it. Starting the 21st of this month. It's actually today, at least when I'm recording it. And they will recruit a wide range of talented individuals across a variety of development fields, okay? And then taking this post from Genki here in terms of just the summary of what they say after, the next installment of Stellar Blade, currently under development at Shift Up, is a AAA multi-platform action game that expands the world of the global hit Stellar Blade. Aiming for release on various platforms, including consoles and PC, the game will inherit the stylish action and narrative-driven world of its predecessor while delivering an evolved action gameplay experience. And above that, he says, new job listing suggests console and PC multi-platform development using Unreal Engine 5. So the big part there that I wanted to make sure I read, right, when we talk about at least a little Unreal Engine 5. Look, I think they couldn't be clearer, with the multi-platform thing. Couldn't be more straightforward with us. I can respect that for sure, right? It's actually interesting because when you click on the link that he had, which I was taking some of the stuff I was reading for you guys from, they actually kind of talk about their connection to PlayStation and talk about like kind of how honored they were that they were the first Korean second party team that Sony ever did. So they have, I think, deep respect for PlayStation and what they were able to kind of get from them in order to bring Stellar Blade to life. But at the same time, they are done. And you know what? This is the way that it's going. I don't see Silent Hill games being exclusive for a year anymore, right? How Silent Hill 2 Remake was. I don't see future Stellar Blade games doing it. Pick your game, right? Final Fantasy. Obviously, Square Enix is totally done. They could actually, you think this is straightforward? Oh my dear God, Square Enix has never made it clear that they are freaking done with releasing just exclusively on one console. So that is a big deal. Obviously, if Stellar Blade comes out just as a PlayStation console release, of course, PC as well down the line. And it did really well for itself, and that's not something I think you forget, and maybe they still work with PlayStation with marketing, or we'll see how the ecosystem is. Maybe it's sold best on PlayStation, maybe it's always going to sell best on PlayStation. I don't know what the end numbers were for PC, but if you remember, because I've covered all of this stuff with Stellar Blade throughout it, I remember reading something, back maybe half a year ago or whatever, that they were expecting PC sales to actually beat PlayStation. They were very happy with the PS5 sales. The PS5 sales alone allowed them to make a Stellar Blade 2, right? They said that. At the same time, they actually expected the PC sales to beat the PS5 sales. Now, I don't know if we actually got the answer to that, the results, right, that actually happened. I don't know if they've ever said it, but I imagine it did at least quite well, right? So it had to have. It had to have, because they have the confidence here to say we're going everywhere for the next one. And, when they talk about multi-platform, Switch 2, is that a possibility? Xbox, of course, is that a possibility? I think they just talked about recently that they're looking to bring Stellar Blade to other consoles in 2026. So I would imagine 26 is the year, next year. It's going to come to Switch 2, at least Switch 2, and then Xbox Series S and X. So that is a huge thing. In fact, it's probably the biggest thing. Of course, saying inherit the stylish action and narrative-driven world of its predecessor. And then I guess continuing on before I go into my thoughts, let's finish my thoughts here. While delivering an evolved action gameplay experience. Look, you double down on what you did with Stellar Blade, and I think you round out the narrative into form. That is it's actually not that long. It's a key to success, and it's the only key to success, right? You had it, I think, with Stellar Blade. I think it's a really, really great game. And look, I think a lot of people actually value the narrative and the way that story was told in Stellar Blade. I will say I'm not really one of them. I thought it was fine, but I thought it could have been a whole lot better. But that's not everybody. I know a lot of people did like it, but I think that's just where you kind of double down, right? Like, people liked the style, people like the look, people like the feel. Of course, the gameplay, I think, was kind of king here. The different locations. I would say overall, like the world view, the world story, I think was actually done quite well. You just kind of double down on the story and Eve and the characters, kind of flesh them out a little bit, and I think you're good to go, and you're probably making a second game that is one of those classic, like, big step-ups from the first game, and maybe one that also can sell, even better. The only other thing to really say before we end this video is Unreal Engine 5. So I believe Stellar Blade was Unreal Engine 4, and then there's like 4 points, like there's a point system after that. I think the PC version was 4.26, so like they've messed around with Unreal Engine 4 is kind of what I'm saying. Now, Unreal Engine 5 scares me a bit. As we talk about here and there, I don't know engines as well as I know other things in the industry, so I don't talk about it all the time. But, when it comes to Unreal Engine 5, I think really what we've seen is developers that are able to figure it out, and I think it can be figured out. It works okay. I think you kind of have to have almost like a Mafia the Old Country type experience. Like, you can have somewhat of an open world, but not really. Like, it's got to be a bit more linear and a bit more almost on rails, and you kind of just have to fine-tune the linear path. We've seen what happens when developers don't understand Unreal Engine 5, and those are some of the worst run games in the last 10 years that have released, by the way, all within the last, 2, right? Like, some developers, I just don't feel like know what they're doing with Unreal Engine 5, but they're kind of pushed to use it. So that does scare me. That does scare me, because a game like this, you need it to be smooth. I mean, any kind of action-y, stylish game like this, you cannot be buffering and stuttering and all the lagging, any of those words, any of the ings. You can't be doing that when you're doing these combat sequences. It's not going to work. It's going to hurt the game. And then, again, I would argue you can't really make, at least not yet. I mean, I think Witcher 4 is doing an open world Unreal Engine 5, so that might be the first one. But to do okay, well, Stellar Blade 2 is going to be more open world than the first one. I'm just saying maybe it is. We don't know. We have really yet to see a developer that can truly nail that one, so I don't know if they'd be the first one. I would kind of prefer you kind of stick to what Stellar Blade 1 did, where it's not super open world. It's kind of these, different zones or sectors, right? And there's room for exploration there, but it's not this massive, like a Assassin's Creed Shadows or a big Ubisoft, or even like a Cyberpunk situation. Like you can't have, I don't think a Stellar Blade game would ever try to do okay, let's do a Cyberpunk map. No, keep it small, keep it contained, and have 3 or 5 of them, right? That's pretty much what they did already, so just do it again. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.